Hey folks, this is Andy Powell of Wishbone Ash. The story is very interesting actually, because we were getting ready for a big American tour, and I've been playing Gibson guitars, but I was looking around for something new, and I walked to this store in Denmark Street, and it was orange, and what caught my eye really was a guitar that was shaped rather like this Gibson Flying V, and I started playing this guitar, and I just saw this orange gear everywhere, and I said, can I plug this thing into something? Obviously this is the equipment you're saying, so I didn't know anything about orange. And number one, the guitar was amazing. They were one of only two Flying Vs that were in the country that time in London for sale. So I really liked the guitar, but I really liked the sound of the gear. And we were kind of in the market for buying a new backline of equipment. And so we made the two purchases in one day, a guitar and a rig. And actually this amp here is it's the first amp that I bought at that time. Well, Denmark Street was the hub of for musicians. That was it was where you met other musos. It was where you would maybe form bands. There were rehearsal rooms there. There were guitar shops, and you know, this goes back to like the 50s. And we would be down there because we worked with a design company that designed all of our album sleeves, a company called Hypnosis. And so they had a little studio garret room above the musical stores in Denmark Street. We would go up there and we would plan out our album covers and actually do photo sessions up there and stuff. But you know, the Orange Shop came along a little bit later. I mean, the thing that set it apart, obviously, was the store itself looked fantastic. It was orange. It was this giant logo, which just fitted in perfectly with what was going on. I mean, we'd gone through the British blues boom. We'd had psychedelia. Cream had come along. They disbanded. There was this feeling of like, what next? And so, you know, to have a store that looked like it was catering for what was going to come next was incredible. It wasn't that big of a store, but you know, because orange was everywhere, you kind of felt a little bit intimidated. It was a brave move, you know, because you were working with equipment that was going to stand the test, make the grade against the big boys of the time, or the American manufacturers and British manufacturers that already had a 10-year head start, 20-year head start. So it was pretty exciting. We were all massive Fleetwood Mac fans, and of course Fleetwood Mac was the other band that bought orange equipment, along with Stevie Wonder. There was three of us that took that gear to America, and it was perfect timing for us because we were going from playing small clubs and theatres in the UK to playing big stadiums. In fact, the first show that we did in America was opening for The Who at the Mississippi River Festival in front of 35,000 people. So to have this very new English equipment that was very powerful and clear. The most important thing I noticed about orange was the clarity of the sound. Beefy, lots of punchy mid-range to it, like beautiful bell-like high end, and we used to take this on the stages in America, and the people running the sound rigs and the PAs were just like, what is that? Firstly, it looked bizarre because being orange, I mean, all gear was black. That was the de facto, that was the thing, black gear. So to have orange gear was a very clever marketing thing. So everyone noticed the gear, you know.
When we say yeah, we want to hear you say yeah.
We got to St. Louis, and at this point we had everything in what they call a semi-truck, an articulated lorry, a truck, 18-wheeler. And in the middle of the night, outside of our hotel, somebody came and very kindly stole the entire truck and all the equipment and our guitars, and that was it. We lost the gear, and we eventually managed to replace things, you know, duplicates and so forth, but we lost the original gear. And then this amp bizarrely turned up out of the blue about 30 years later. I was playing again in St. Louis, and somebody sheepishly came up to me at a show, a very small show at that point, and said, "I think I have one of your amplifiers." And he showed me this amplifier, which looked a little bit like this, but it had all the front taken off. It was disguised. They tried to disguise the orange label, everything on there, the logo, but I knew it was my amp. And then he gave me the amp back. It was very, I don't think he'd stolen it, but he had received it as stolen goods. So I took it back to my home in Connecticut, stayed in my garage for about 10 years. And then I've met some people, a guy called Chris Husband from Vancouver, who turned me on to an amp guru called Ed Johnson down in Texas, Dallas, Texas. And he refurbished the amp, and I started to use it. The interesting thing was that I knew the sound. It was back in my memory and in my touch. And as soon as I started playing Orange again, I was like, oh my God, that's our sound. And everyone's been coming up to me on this tour and saying, wow, that is the sound of the band. You were always close before, but this has brought it right back. This thick, punchy sound that we get on stage, which is at the same time it's got a lot of fidelity. So that's been just a real joy for me to realize that something that I picked up on, almost 5 decades ago, still stands the test of time and sounds even better than ever. I'm also using the brand new Rockaverb 100s, which are very comparable actually. And it's our sound. I mean, it's the sound that made Wishbone Ash, the twin lead guitar sound. It's very important with two guitarists playing lead to have clean, clear sound with a nice, gruff edge to it and plenty of punch, so that when, we both go on to lead guitar playing, there's no rhythm guitar behind us, but we don't need it. The sound is full. And we can play these dual lead lines with this equipment, and that's the sound that made the band. So Wishbone Ash and Orange and Flying V's. It's a great story, a marriage made in heaven. There was another band in Britain called Blossom Toes, and that was with Jim Cregan, and they dabbled a bit with twin lead stuff. So it wasn't an entirely fresh concept, but I would venture to say that we probably took it further than any other band, and have subsequently influenced bands like Thin Lizzy and Iron Maiden and those kind of classic rock outfits, But we were in a way, we were like the way that modern jam bands are. It was the way that Wishbone Ash was back in the day. So we were eclectic. We take music from anything that we were hearing. It could be folk rock, could be art rock, could be progressive. I mean, we did a lot of jazz tinged things, and again, the Orange was great for that because of the clarity. And so we just found that we were able to try. Our music became an eclectic mix of all those influences and those bands that we enjoyed, Well, every decade had its thing. I mean, guitars were quite out of fashion in the 1980s because that's when synths came to the fore, and everyone thought the guitar was going to disappear. So we had to kind of like adapt a little bit, lie low. There was punk music came along, but every decade we were able to take something from it and incorporate it in our music. And in the same way with different musicians that joined or left the band, everyone would leave their stamp on the music. And because we were never particularly a well-known band producing singles, we weren't rooted in any one decade. So I always think that's part of the longevity of the band, is the fact that we weren't, when you have a hit single, you're rooted in that particular decade, and we've been able to be a players band, really. We're coming up to 50 years as a recording and gigging entity, so it's something I'm proud of.
Wondering why your face no longer shines.
Our audiences range from sort of 15 to 65, 70 even. And one really interesting thing is the latest partner I have on guitar, Mark Abrahams. He actually first heard this music from his father when he was 9. He's a lot younger than me. And so it was almost printed into his DNA. And when he came of age, I knew him for a while. He was running a music store, in fact, selling Orange gear. And, that is hugely rewarding to have an impact on younger crowd, as well as people my age,